At this point, you should have already watched the first video. You should have already completed the front side of your assignment. So now you're on the back side of your notes, and we're going to take this up another notch. So instead of me giving you a slope and 1 point, I'm just giving you 2 points that are on the line. So we're going to have to do a little bit extra work before we can find our equation, still writing in slope-intercept form. Same thing, you got your steps on the left. I'm going to give you an example on the right, and then we're going to do a couple more examples. So this time, before you can fill in the information that you know, you have to be able to find your slope. To do that, we're going to use our slope formula. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to find the slope. And you started class with an activity reminding yourself how to do that. You remember your slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if my equation, or my 2 points on my line are my -5, 3, my 0, -7, I'm going to start by putting my y's at the top. So I'm going to have -7 minus 3, and then I'm going to have 0 minus -5. When I do my math, I should end up with -10 at the top, and I should end up with 5 at the bottom. Remember, you always want to simplify to the best of your ability. If you can make it a whole number and no longer a fraction, do that, but you don't want to turn it into a decimal. I can simplify -10 over 5 into a -2. From here, I am going to fill in the information that I do know. So at this point in my life, I know that my y is equal to -2x plus b. Now here's the part where this is interesting. What you were just doing, you only had 1 point that you could pick. So there wasn't a lot of, well, which one am I going to pick? This time, though, you're going to have a little more choice in what you're going to do. So you're going to pick one of your 2 points. It doesn't matter which point you pick. Either one is fine, but you're going to pick one of your 2 points. I always like to look at the numbers, and I like to pick the points that to me look like they're going to have easier numbers to work with. So I have -5, 3, or I have 0, -7. Usually if there's a 0 involved, I want to pick the 0. But either point would work. It doesn't matter. You would end up with the same answer. So I'm actually going to pick 5, -5, 3, just so that you can pick the harder one. But like I said, usually if there's a 0, I picked a 0 because zeros are the easiest to work with. Make sure you write down your third step, which is pick a point. Again, it doesn't matter which one you pick. I try and pick the ones that have the easiest numbers. So now I'm going to replace my y with the 3 because the 3 is in the y spot. -2 times -5 plus b. Now I'm just going to do my math like we did before. And essentially you're doing the same steps that we just did on the front of our notes. So you're going to have 10 plus b and then 3. And then I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. And that's going to leave me with -7 equals b. From here, I am going to say that y equals -2x minus 7. And remember, once you found your b, you're actually just plugging in the b value back into where you originally wrote your slope-intercept form. Make sure before you move on to the bottom, you fill in the rest of your steps. After you pick your point to use, step 4 is you're filling in your x and your y. And step 5, you are solving for your b. And then you're writing in slope-intercept form. So like I said, this is exactly the same thing. We just had to add a step, and that was our first step, which was where we were finding our slope. Okay, moving on to the bottom, let's do our examples on the bottom of our page. So The first one says you're trying to find slope-intercept form if you are given the points -3, 2, and then 5, 1. So first thing you're going to do is you are going to find your slope, starting with your y's. I'm going to do 1 minus 2 over 5 minus -3. From here, using my math, using what I know, using my calculator, whatever makes me happy, I got -1/8. Now I'm looking at my 2 points and I'm going to say, okay, which of these 2 points do I like better? Just looking at them, I would probably pick 5, 1, just because there's no negatives. But again, it doesn't matter which one you pick. You would get the same answer no matter what. So I'm going to fill in the information that I know at this very second, which all I know right now is my slope. And I know some of you are going to start to skip this step where you fill in what you know because you think you don't need to write it. It just helps keep my brain clear. After this, I'm going to go with the point 5, 1. So 1 is in the y spot. So I'm going to say 1 equals -1/8 times 5 plus b. I'm then going to do my math. When I do my math, this gets really ugly because -1/8 times 5 is actually going to be -5/8, which is okay. You have a calculator. It's not that big of a deal. You're going to add 5/8 to the other side of your equation. Again, use your brain, use your calculator. But you should end up with your b value being 13/8. Now, here's one of those examples where technically it might be a good idea to see if that ends up being a decent decimal. In this case, when I put it into my calculator, this is the decimal that I got. I am okay when you write this in slope-intercept form if you leave it either way. I do not care if you go with the 13/8. I do not care if you go to 1.625. Since it's your y-intercept and not your slope, I'm good with you writing it either way. So you could make it look like this, plus 13/8, or you could say y equals -1/8 x plus 1.625. Technically, if I said to you, okay, now go graph this, you would probably end up using the second version, this one, because most of you don't know where 13/8 is. You would turn it into a decimal, and then you would know to start your line on your y-intercept, on your y-axis, you would go a little over halfway up in between 1 and 2 to put your dot. But I would be okay with either one. So sometimes you are going to end up in situations like this. Again, not my slope, but my y-intercept, I'm okay with you having to write it as a decimal. That's fine. Okay, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to do number 4 without me. Okay, so your video should be unpaused, and you should be looking at my last example that I did. When I found my slope, I got -4. From there, I picked the second point, but either point works. It really doesn't matter which one. They were about the same. It wasn't like one was 1, 0, and the other one was really big numbers. They were about the same. But I picked the second point. When I plugged them in and solved, I got 8 for my y-intercept, and then all I did was plug in the 8 back into what I had already started with. So my equation was y equals -4x plus 8. At this time, you're now going to flip your paper to the back side and you're going to do the rest of those. I do believe there is a word problem on the back of your assignment. I do want you to try that. You shouldn't be afraid of word problems. So you are going to do your word problem as well as the rest of the questions on that paper. This is homework if you do not finish it. So if you don't get time to finish it, you do need to have it done with questions ready to grade when you walk in the door tomorrow. Keep working hard. Hope you have a great day.